All right, friends, welcome to our meditation time. I invite you to settle, and I hope that you invite yourself to settle, to just get comfortable, to just let all the things go that still need to be done. Let all the things go that have cluttered up your mind today. And just invite yourself into this present moment right here, intentionally, noticing the next breath coming in and noticing the next breath going out. Just see over these first couple of breaths that you take on your own if you can let all that activity just go and really bring yourself to the here and the now. And as you're breathing, just notice how you are today. Notice how you are in this moment right here. Physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. Just take it all in. And then let's take a couple breaths together just to really bring unity to our showing up to this beautiful collective of each person in their own physical space on this beautiful planet where we live, but collectively coming together into this present moment. So just take a slow breath in here. And then just a whisper of a breath out. And a slow breath in. And another whisper of a breath out. And then find a rhythm that feels right for you. Today's Yoga Sutra is all about our perception. In fact, it's kind of bundled together. These many sutras over the coming days are all about how we perceive the world, our state of consciousness, our impressions of what we see. And they all come at this nearing the end of the whole Yoga Sutra journey, where Patanjali has already instructed us on so many practical, tangible kind of tools, things that we can actually watch ourselves doing, how we breathe and how we sit and how we create clean environments for ourselves and how we pause and all the things, very tangible. But he spends these few lines of nearing the end of the Yoga Sutras, talking about our consciousness, our perceptions. He didn't start with these at the very beginning. He had to get us to the point that we realize that this practice gives us pathways to calm those fluctuations of our mind, to help us to begin to see the true, pure light of who we are. So that then, as we come to these verses, these lines toward the end, we can begin to sit with this idea of consciousness, this idea of really seeing the reality, not the tainted or the colored perception that maybe we've seen for a long time, but really see with eyes of clarity, without letting our past ways of being and thinking and doing cloud how we see the here and the now. And so he's going to spend these next few verses, and so we'll spend these coming days just sitting with that, cultivating a sense of perception that is rooted in the purity of our consciousness. So this particular one is number 17 in the 4th chapter, and he says, something is known or not known based on the mind's impressions. Meaning, something is going to happen. There's going to be a situation or an action or a behavior. And based on what you or I know or don't know, we will understand our version of truth, how we see that thing to be right or not right. And so we'll begin to connect to that thing, that situation, that behavior, that moment And it's all connected to what we've already experienced before. And so as I was sitting with that, I thought, I get this on the surface, but I want us to really get it at the root. And so I came up with a really tangible example that I experienced a few years ago that I think really exhibits what this sutra is trying to teach us. So just imagine this. A man and a woman are getting close to entering a door of a department store. They're each coming from their car, from wherever they were parked, and they're walking toward the same entrance. So just picture that. And as they get close, the man hurries his step just a bit and opens the door and moves out of the way and allows the woman to pass through. And depending on where you have lived, what you've been taught as you were growing up, the things that you hold to be true, you're going to see that situation in a certain way and convince yourself that how you see it is right. And some of you are thinking, well, there's only one way to see it. And so just picture that in your head. This man hurrying those last few steps to open that door and allow this woman to pass through, smiling at her as he does. And for someone who was raised in the South, to me, that scene feels really natural. In fact, if he had not held the door open, I might have thought something about that. However, I moved to Europe in 2008. And after having lived in the southern part of the United States for 40 years prior to doing that, I had impressions in my mind of how things are right or how things are wrong. And I remember the first time that I was going into a store and there was a man going in at the same time, and he went ahead of me and opened the door and walked right through, letting the door just swing for me to catch it and pass through on my own. Two very different impressions of this seemingly benign action. But my conditioning in my mind as someone being raised in the South of how my dad taught respect and how he saw the role of the gentleman, it colored the way that I see this benign action of walking through a door. And I later learned after talking to people in Denmark that if the man had held the door open for me and I was not an American, but rather I was Danish, I probably would have been offended. That he would have thought I was too weak to do this on my own, that we weren't equal. But me, someone from the South, for a moment judged him for not holding the door open for me. And I thought about that situation and thought, this is what Patanjali is telling us. The same thing happened. Both sides saw it. The door is opened, the person passes through, and the other person passes through. The order that they pass through really doesn't matter. But our own impressions immediately cause us to assign judgment to it. We see one way of doing it is right, and one way of doing it is wrong. And so I wonder if in our own lives, if you could think of something else as we pause here, some other seemingly neutral thing, and you realize, I see it that way because of where I grew up. Or I see it that way because of what I was taught as a kid. Or I see it that way because of, and then you just fill in the blank. And it doesn't mean that me wanting a gentleman to hold the door open is wrong. But it does mean that I can't assign judgment to someone who does not. And that's where I think our world gets into a lot of trouble. Our impressions color our reality. Same situation, same door, same humans. Two very different ways of seeing it. And if something so benign and neutral as holding the door open can cause a separation, a division, a criticism, imagine what we're doing in our world with the really big stuff. We see a situation, and whatever our personal conditioning or impressions, or as we call them in Sanskrit, our samskaras, our grooves of impressions on our mind, we immediately think that the whole world should see it this way. And if they don't, they are wrong. Growing up, I don't know that I would have realized this nearly as much as I do now because of social media. And I'm so very thankful for how connected we can be because of what technology offers. But I also think there's a really slippery slope of a lot of department store door opening situations out there on the internet and social media. And we're assigning judgment every day. But what Patanjali says is, I've taught y'all over 100 lines of how to be. And now I need you to recognize that your consciousness, it needs to be pure and clear and not clouded by your impressions. There's nothing wrong with me that I was raised in the South and I like when a gentleman holds the door and I can smile and he can smile back. But I cannot judge or criticize the gentleman who does not. That's what Patanjali is talking about. And so I ask each of us as we sit in this next couple of minutes of quiet, what are the situations in life right now that maybe your impressions are causing you to jump to a judgment or to a conclusion or to a criticism? And are you willing to take a step back and breathe and begin to see the root of why you think the way that you do? I did that in 2008 as I moved abroad. And then I came home 5 years later and smiled each time a gentleman would hold the door open for me. Are you willing to look at your impressions? Are you willing to understand them? The great teacher Thich Nhat Hanh always tells us in meditation, those are the things you need to invite to sit next to you. While you sit, invite those impressions. Invite those judgments. Don't treat them as an enemy. Treat them as a friend. They've been with you for a while. See if they're serving your consciousness well or if they're clouding what you see. So let's just pause these next couple of minutes in the quiet and the stillness, and then see what you invite to sit next to you. Which impression, which way of seeing the world. begin to bring gentle awareness back to that next breath as it comes in. And as you breathe out, just notice what you noticed. What came to mind, what bubbled up near the surface, or what did you invite to sit right there with you for those moments of quiet? For most of us, it took a long time to get here. These impressions have been forming and becoming rooted for many years. And one meditation time is not going to unroot them, but it is going to bring us a deeper sense of awareness. It's not about looking in the mirror and thinking that everything that you think and that you believe is wrong. It's making sure you are so aware that nothing's getting in the way of this pure light of consciousness that you so desire to live from. And so I invite us all in these next coming moments, days, weeks, whatever it is, just kind of notice. Notice how you respond to things. And maybe not in that moment. Maybe later on when it's quiet, just sit with yourself and just ask the question of, where did that come from? Same way I did the first moment in Denmark when that first man didn't hold the door open and just let it swing for me to figure it out on my own. My first thought was to judge him. My second thought was, why did I think he needed to hold it open in the first place? And I went back about 40 years and realized my impressions have been forming for a very long time. And so just kind of watch how you move through the world in the coming days. We show up to meditation to connect to this pure sense of consciousness that we all have, to remove the layers of things that are in the way. And most of the time we discover that we're the ones that put the layers there. And so let's just be willing to sit with those things. And as we unpack more of these sutras on consciousness and perception, maybe that moment of truth will be revealed for you the same way it was for me that day in Denmark, standing at that door. Again, not judging ourselves, but cultivating a sense of awareness, knowing ourselves so well, and then choosing accordingly. Namaste.